Human beings do have one extra sense. We are, so far as we know, the only animal cursed with foreknowledge. Reality is a more explicitly consensual enterprise in the retirement home than on the outside. The senses are unreliable, memories failing, and cognitive problems common. My mother often sees people who aren't there, or, let us say, people I do not see, and conflates authentic memories with dreams and imagination. But she was a nurse or a teacher of nursing her whole career, so she also knows that these are symptoms of her diagnosis. She accepts that I don't see all the same people she does, and takes my word for it when I tell her that I have not in fact come out as gay, or been killed. Sometimes I also have to make ontological compromises. I was initially doubtful of Mom's claim to have seen a horse jump off a high dive in Atlantic City, but it proved to be perfectly true. When she asked me to place a slice of pizza on a plate in front of the man sitting in the black chair, I obliged. I wasn't going to be rude to a guest just because he didn't, in my opinion, exist. It only occurred to me after I left the retirement home that I had a mental image of the man in the chair, tall, slim, silver-haired, dressed in a dark suit. So in a sense, I saw him now too. A couple of years after I'd graduated college, my father was dying in what had been my old bedroom upstairs. Because my mother was a nurse, he was, relatively, fortunate in getting to die at home, surrounded by family, instead of in a hospital, attended by strangers. Sometime in the last week that he was still lucid, he asked my mother who had been playing the piano downstairs. Mom thought, "I told you so." It's an old belief that the veil of reality grows thinner, more permeable, at either end of life, near birth and death, just as it's said to around this time of year, on the cusp between summer and winter, at All Hallows' Eve and the Day of the Dead. Cartoonist Linda Barry says that, watching a child play with an imaginary friend or inanimate object, it's hard to avoid the impression that something is playing back with them. And I can't deny that I am crept out when Mom holds a conversation with a little girl she says is sitting at the foot of her bed. That story about Dad hearing the piano music on his deathbed gives me the kind of cozy shivers that good ghost stories do, spooky on the surface, but, deep down, comforting. Stephen King likes to recount a conversation he had with Stanley Kubrick during his adaptation of The Shining. King, then still a drinker, was hung over, in the middle of shaving, one eye open, when his wife appeared in the bathroom door, looking like she'd seen a ghost, to tell him someone claiming to be Stanley Kubrick was on the phone. Pretty much the first thing the great director said when he got the hungover author on the horn was, "Isn't a ghost story fundamentally optimistic?" King was like, how do you figure? Kubrick, an arch-rationalist, argued that the genre inherently assumes that there is at least something beyond the grave, so wasn't it essentially comforting? King, who is ultimately a religious writer, thought it over and asked, "But what about hell?" It was effectively their last pre-production discussion.